Ever since the rule was introduced in 2007 to allow David Beckham to come to MLS, designated players have been a calling card of the league. The ability to sign big-name players such as Beckham, Thierry Henry, or Zlatan Ibrahimovic has allowed MLS teams to drastically improve their teams with a few key players and bring in big names that draw large crowds and alert the casual soccer fan to the existence of MLS. While some designated player signings have been used to keep talented domestic players in North America, the vast majority have been used on older international talent, taking MLS jobs away from domestic players and giving them to internationals. The question I want to ask here is, well, designated players are obviously great for MLS. Are they good for the development of American and Canadian talent? Major League Soccer was created because the USA lacked a clear Tier 1 professional soccer league. And if there's one thing that every country needs to have a national team that's competitive on the global scale, it's a clear Tier 1 soccer league. MLS has now run for 25 seasons and has seen huge bursts of expansion recently. Its popularity has consistently grown every year, and now we're seeing MLS teams sell out NFL stadiums on a regular basis. It is clear that MLS has done great things for soccer in both the USA and Canada through its first 25 years. And while the league has created many openings for professional footballers to play in North America, to play in the US or to play in Canada for their hometown teams, there seems to be discrepancy in what positions these domestic players are playing at in MLS. And this all leads back to the designated player rule. In soccer or football, as in most sports, it is a lot harder to score goals than it is to defend goals. It's the old saying, defensive structure can be coached, but the ability to score goals comes naturally. And as such, and especially in a league where there is a hard salary cap, teams are more inclined to spend more money on players who are naturally gifted at scoring goals. It's something that cannot be taught, and it's a harder skill to have. So, as you would imagine, most designated players in MLS are attacking players. Now, I wanted to look into just how offensively dominated is the group of designated players that the MLS currently has, and how internationally talent-based that group of DPs is. Because if a lot of designated player spots are being used on domestic talent, it's proof that being a star in MLS is a reasonable career path for a talented player in North America. So compiling all the designated players currently in MLS up to the Wanyama signing today, I have this. There are currently 64 designated players in MLS, and of that, 59 of them are internationals, 4 of them are from the United States, and 1 of them is from Canada. That is a whopping 92% of designated players being internationals. So that makes it clear that the designated player rule is not leading to talented American players getting big payouts to continue playing in North America. But that is not a huge issue. MLS designated players are oftentimes referred to as too good for their league. So in a lot of cases, it would hurt the development of very talented young domestic players to continue playing in MLS as a DP, and it does much more for their careers and much more for their development to go off to Europe and continue playing there, as seen in the cases of players such as Tyler Adams and Alphonso Davies. So the fact that most designated players are international players isn't the biggest issue. The biggest issue is what positions these designated players are playing. As seen by this graph here, well over 3/4 of the designated players currently in MLS either play striker, winger, or attacking midfielder. In fact, only 9 designated players in the entire league don't play one of those 3 main attacking positions. Of those 9, 6 of them play center midfield, 2 of them play CDM, so still in the midfield, and only 1 designated player in all of MLS is a defender, and that is Ali Adnan, who plays as a left back. Now, the fact that 38 designated players in MLS are forwards, being either strikers or wingers, gets even more disturbing when you realize in recent years, football has developed so that the two-striker system that would be played in the era of the 4-4-2 has all but disappeared. So most teams are only currently playing one striker. With most teams only playing one striker, and 17 designated players in MLS being strikers, that results in over half of the starting strikers in MLS being designated players. Now, from the first week of MLS action, I found 3 instances of a team starting 2 strikers up top. Every single team only used 1. This graph here shows the percentage of starts taken up by designated players in each of those 3 major attacking roles in striker, winger, and attacking midfielder. Now, of course, we're assuming 2 wingers and 1 attacking midfielder per team on this graph, but it shows us that almost 60% of the starting strikers in MLS are designated players, over 50% of the starting attacking midfielders are DPs, and just over 40% of the starting wingers in Major League Soccer are designated players. So what's the big deal? MLS teams like to start talented players up front. Well, the issue is what happens to young, talented domestic players when the player ahead of them in their natural position in the starting lineup is a DP. Well, the issue is they just don't get the opportunities to succeed. Now, I'm going to use a biased example being a TFC fan. I've seen TFC play a lot more, but Toronto FC is a team that has always had designated player strikers. And as such, Toronto FC has never developed a Canadian striker to play for them. Any Canadian strikers who have gotten significant minutes for Toronto FC have come back after establishing their careers elsewhere, such as Dwayne De Rosario or Tosaint Ricketts. In recent years, the best examples I can think of for young strikers who had some potential but never realized it were Mo Babouli and Jordan Hamilton, who always were on the cusp of getting into MLS, but because they had to contend with players such as Danny Kovermans, Jermaine Defoe, Josie Altidore, and Sebastian Giovinco for minutes in MLS, they just never were really given opportunities to get into an MLS lineup, and as such, their careers just kind of faltered. And this trend becomes alarming once you look at Canada's 2019 Gold Cup squad. From top to bottom, starting in on defense, you see a lot of domestic players. In guys like Ashton Morgan, Derek Cornelius, Daniil Henry, Camille Miller, all defenders who play in MLS and start in MLS for the most part. But as you go up the lineup to the attacking midfield players and then to the strikers, it becomes alarming as not a single striker on Canada's Gold Cup team played in MLS. Now, in 2 of those cases, you have Kyle Larin and Alphonso Davies, who both got their start in MLS and got significant minutes in MLS before moving on to European clubs. But in the case of the other 3, Lucas Cavallini, Jonathan David, and Liam Millar all went abroad to develop their skills elsewhere. The US Gold Cup squad did not have the same level of problem as they had an even split of domestic players throughout all their positions. But that is likely attributed to the fact that the US has many more teams, which means many more academies, which means many more options for young academy players to impress and earn themselves some minutes at the MLS level and turn that into MLS careers. But of course, there's always controversy that the US just has a lack of depth of strikers to pick for their national team, as seen with guys like Gissi Zardes getting continuously called up, even though that stirs up some controversy with the fans. Meanwhile, when it comes to defenders or goalkeepers, it seems like the US has no shortage of players to pick from in MLS, as there are just many, many more domestic players in starting roles in defensive positions across MLS as in striker. So the striker pools have fewer MLS players to choose from, not just based off of the fact that there are fewer strikers on any team, but also because a higher proportion of attacking players compared to any other position come from high-quality international talent in Major League Soccer. Now, of course, being Canadian, I wanted to look at the Canadian Premier League as well, And while the CPL doesn't have a designated player rule as of yet, there have been some rumors that they might want to add one at some point. There are a limited number of international player roster spots, and typically when you get an international player to come to your league, it costs a little bit more to get one of them than a domestic player because you're basically convincing them to move away from their home country and come play in your league, so you're going to have to pay them a bit over league average. So I thought it would be interesting to see the positional balance of international players who are currently signed to CPL teams as of March 4th. And as you can see, it is a much more even balance than designated players in MLS when it comes to forwards, midfielders, defenders. It seems like Canadian Premier League teams are using their international spots to fill out all positions evenly, so the CPL is not tilting in the bona fide all-offense way yet. So am I saying that we should just get rid of designated players in MLS and that they are bad for domestic football? No. Designated players are very, very important to Major League Soccer because they are a huge reason as to why the league is where it is. They draw large amounts of fans to come see MLS games. The pull of being able to see players such as Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Josef Martinez, Carlos Vela, Chicharito, those players sell tickets in MLS. And not saying that without designated players, MLS wouldn't be able to sell tickets, but to draw more casual fans to come see games and to draw more casual fans to start following MLS, they are important. And because of the pull they have on getting more people interested in MLS and more people interested in football, you could argue that designated players are actually good for the growth and development of the national teams because they cause more kids to start playing soccer and cause more kids to be interested in soccer and give kids who are potentially talented enough to be professional footballers role models who they can go see play in their home cities. So designated players and attacking designated players are great for just adding more excitement to the game, and they are a needed thing to help grow the game in these two countries. However, to employ the route of having most of your attacking players in your league being designated players, you just have to make sure that you have a pretty good development system behind that and a pretty solid second-tier league so that you can develop your younger strikers and younger attacking players and get them minutes in a competitive professional setting. So don't get stuck fighting for minutes behind these designated players who they have no hopes of catching and have their development path ruined. So yeah, that does it for this video. A little more of a thought piece than I usually do. Just something I kind of had on my mind. I love designated players, but I think it would be interesting and potentially good for MLS to see a few more defender DP signings. I think it's a strategy that hasn't really been tried, and I mean, like, if you're going to go all out and bring some, like, unstoppable center backs into MLS, it might be a worthwhile strategy to at least try. But for right now, it's bona fide, all offense, go, 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 score goals, DPs. And I mean, it's super fun for the game, and I kind of like that. So yeah, if you like this video, hit like. If you want to see more of my stuff, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Link is down below in the description. And I will see you next time.